Ahoy, hoy, friends. Welcome to the Salon. It's Disco Season 3 time. Welcome. So excited to talk about this season. Always excited to talk about Star Trek. Really excited to be joined with our Salon crew. We have nearly a full house today and a new face. Welcome, Johnny. Thank you so much for joining us in the speaker's box. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience and share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, hi everybody. I am Johnny. I am a big Trekkie. I think I became a Trekkie, I want to say officially 2015 when I was a senior in high school. Started watching Trek late at night because they would play reruns of TNG on Channel 11 if you're from the East Coast on Channel 11 late at night. And I forgot the name of the episode. I just watched it too. But the episode in TNG when they go to the planet and it's like an Irish, like an whole entire Irish like colony. That I used to watch that. Like I love that episode so much, and I remember watching that before my family and I would like we would get up really early, obviously, to go to the airport for vacation. And so there was always Star Trek on early, like 4 a.m. before we'd have to leave for vacation. So that got me into it. And then eventually I started to find a community here with Trek on Twitter, I think in 2022. And now here we are. And I'm so happy to be here because I feel like I have no one else in life to talk about Trek with, and I'm so happy to finally be here. So thank you for having me.
And now you have us. Welcome. Super excited to have you, and you'll be assigned 3 men to have babies with at the end of the Salon. That episode is ridiculous. Such a great memory. Thank you for sharing that. Well, friends, before we really dive in, I wanted to take a quick minute to follow up from a fun little tweet. Fun little Twitter moment this morning. We were asking folks to name this band. And if you're not following us on Twitter, it's at USS Salon. Please do. We're also on Blue Sky. So we wanted folks to name this band, and so we thought we would highlight some of the really good ones. Not that the ones that aren't highlighted aren't good. It's just that I put this together a few hours ago and may have missed a few. But some good ones want to share here. Let's see. We got Endless Shaft. We'll probably be talking about that moment later today. Green Machine. Excellent. Emerald Mac, gotta say that's one of my favorites. Just kidding, it's the one that I wrote. Green Sleigh from our friend Brad, really good one. Chain of Fools, lovely. Osira and the Syndicates, also love it. Osira in Chains, almost. And then my personal favorite from Will, who will be joining us later, Emerald Chain Smokers. And then we also had a few honorable mentions, including, I believe it was Malevolent Dido, but I also first thought it was Malevolent Dildo. Thank you, Krista, for that one. I know you said Dido, but Malevolent Dildo. Yeah, exactly. Super fun. Well, friends, before we really get into it, we, as always, of course, must set an intention.
Is it less creepy when it's not right under my chin? I feel like it is. I feel like when I just move it out a little bit. No, still disturbing. Okay,
it was
whatever.
not creepy before. I don't think.
I think next time you just need to make it completely dark in your house when the video goes, then the candle, and then just go full like Little Women and be like, we must hurry by the fire before the snows come.
The reflection.
What if you had like a little miner's hat from like the 1700s where it's like a little candle in the front? And no.
That would be fantastic. And, Rigel has something to add to the conversation. Sorry, I had to use my dad voice. So for tonight, I thought it would be fun if we imagined ourselves experiencing the burn. So I'd like everyone to tell me what planet you wouldn't mind being stuck on during the burn. Normally I would go first, but I'm going to go get Rigel under control and I'll let you guys go first. So why don't we start with Joanne? Joanne, tell me where you're going to be trapped and we'll go around the room.
Honestly, I would love to be trapped on Betas said during the burn, I feel like, empathy and understanding and directness and, they seem like they're loving people on every level as well. So that'd be I'd feel less disconnected at Beta Z.
Because everyone can hear what you're thinking. I like it. Ken, where are you going to be trapped?
So, two possible places. I mean, I could shave the rest of my head and then I can be trapped on Delta, which would be an interesting planet to be trapped on, just because it would be a lot of fun. Or
There
I
are
could
worse
be trapped
planets.
on, there are worse planets. Or I could be trapped on the Shore Leave planet from the original series. And that would be an interesting thing because I would, have all my fantasies come true. And then if I got killed, I'd just be recreated. The planet before it got to the animated series episode where it all went crazy. So one of those two planets.
All right, Johnny, welcome to your first on stage salon. What planet are you trapped on during the burn, or at least what planet do you hope you're trapped on?
100% Risa. There's nowhere else I want to be. Just on the beach, like you can't travel, you can't leave. That's fine with me. I'll be there with Picard, having fun. And that's it. And going scavenging for archaeological uh what is it called? An archaeological site.
Digs.
There we go.
Right, yeah.
There we
Expedition,
go.
even all
There
of the
we go.
above.
Whatever I didn't go to school for. There we go.
I'm sure he'd be willing to teach you all there is to know about archaeology. So Hale,
I think I would like to be either on Earth. I know that's boring, but it seems like fun place. Cisco's is there. If I want to go have like really good food, I can go to France to what's that bar that Tom and I don't know. I just think Earth. But if I had to choose a non-Earth planet, then I think I would choose Trill.
nice. I was actually just thinking of changing my original answer to Trill because the episode was on just a few minutes ago, and I was like, oh wow, it's really pretty. Krista?
Mine are all about comfort. So the first one would be Casperia Prime because beach, waterfalls, rainforests, I'm all about it. The other one would be wherever the Baku were. I can't remember their planet's name, but I figure the move is you go there and you stop time. Basically, you stop aging. You just wait all this shit out. And 900 years later, you bop right back in. You're still 58. You're good to go.
And you make a damn good quilt.
And I make a really good woven quilt. Yeah.
I believe the planet, the system, and the people were all just called Baku.
Which is
So
also a
I'm
real
gonna go-
place in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan. I can't
Easy
say it.
for you
Sorry.
to say.
No,
It's a cool-
no, you got to get it right before we
All
move
right,
forward.
All right. Let me pull it up.
Abergine.
Or Aberjayan.
Hold on. I
Good
can't
night,
even spell
everybody.
it.
No.
Yeah,
I'm
we
such
can
a
move on.
bad
We can move on. It's
American
fine.
right now. Sorry.
Azerbaijan.
Thank you.
Did you think you were
Azerbaijan.
Did you think you were throwing your voice effectively enough for us to think that was Sohail? Because that didn't work.
Damn it.
As no surprise to anyone, I'm picking Bejor. Just because the people are pretty and the planet's pretty, and I was thinking of saying Earth just because Earth in the 32nd century seems obnoxiously and at a level of paranoia that can only be trumped by my own normal paranoia during normal life, safe and secure. And so I was thinking, oh, I wouldn't mind staying on a planet that had a giant force field around it. But I was also thinking it kind of sucks that they can't go anywhere because they're afraid of pirates and everything else. And so it just didn't seem like a fun place to be. So Bajor, it's your turn, Stan.
Well, I'm a slut, so I'm going to say Rubicon 3. Planet from Justice. Skimpy outfits.
All
running
that damn
around,
running, all that running.
Just don't step on the flowers.
staying away from the flowers.
Yeah.
And if you'd like to hear more about our thoughts regarding justice, please visit our season 1 thumb war of TNG. from the end of the year. It was
Can
It
you
was-
please cosplay that at
it was intense.
We were joking
talked
about
about it.
doing that.
We've
with
talked
your
about it.
golf
We were.
shorts?
Okay.
We should, yeah, all of us are gonna go to STLV in the skimpiest of outfits and
I don't think a
rub
group
rub
has
oil on
ever.
each other.
I've never seen photos of people cosplaying the Rubicon, the Edo. So
Mm.
maybe that would be a real good group costume thing.
Oh boy.
Nut huggers, come on.
I just I shan't be doing that. Although we talked about this before. The only problem with that episode was that they didn't have more body types. Also different skin colors.
I was
Come
going to say
on.
that wasn't the only problem, but it was a problem.
Body type encompasses skin color. No, it
Yes.
doesn't, but whatever.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, that episode's weird. Yeah, yeah. We could combine Twaining and the Edo. It could be fun. All right, enough silliness. It's time to jump into the future. It's Star Trek Discovery Season 3 in the 32nd century. All right, let's get into it. We're going to talk about, of course, our top thoughts. Top thoughts on the third season of Star Trek Discovery. These are our quick rants, our 60-second or less thoughts on the season. I make eye contact with Sohail when I joke about that. Johnny, our new Saloner, why don't you kick us off and give us your top thoughts on the third season?
All right. Well, first, I apologize for last week because I was so looking forward to talking and dragging season 2 of Discovery because it's my least favorite season of Discovery. And season 3, though, redeems it because I think season 3 is just like my absolute season, a favorite season of Discovery. I feel like they just did, excuse me, I feel like compared to season 2, season 3, they did a lot of new things, but I feel like it was paced well and I feel like it was done well. There was some things where I was just like, no, I don't know. But for the most part, I just felt like season 3 was so entertaining. There was a lot of science in it. And I also feel like, especially Adira's character was so fundamental for me personally. And I felt like the way they went about it, excuse me, when it comes to a lot of TV shows trying to talk about social issues, it ends up coming off very gimmicky or very commercial. Just it doesn't come off natural. And I feel like Adira's character's not or non-binary identity was presented in a very realistic, keeping in mind that we're talking about the future in a fictional show. And I think Blue, I forgot their last name, but Blue did a great job with their performance of Adira. But I love season 3. I love Osira. This season, I don't know what was going on in the writers' room, but I was every week I was just eating. I was so happy, and I cannot complain. And I feel like season 3 is where Discovery finally started to get like a little bit of its footing. Because I feel like with a lot of TV shows, like in the past, TV shows used to give them time to actually develop characters. But now everyone wants it new and perfect now. But a lot of people hate on Discovery, but I feel like season 3 is when Discovery started to really balance out and start to really establish itself as a show to then build up to something like season 4. So I love season 3. It's definitely my favorite.
Let's go to Joanne and then Ken, then Sohail, Krista, Trevor, and then I'll round us out.
So season 3 for me um is a mixed bag for me. Overall, I really liked it because where it might have fallen in story, because I don't always vibe with kind of the mirror universe. It's just not my cup of tea in any iteration of Trek. Um, so where it may have fallen short in some execution, it deeply connected with me emotionally. Like they hit some very powerful emotional beats throughout the season. And particularly, I think it began strong and it ended strong. I mean, I rewatched kind of the final episode today, and I still got deeply emotional, love her or hate her, to see Burnham take the chair. Like I cried because that was just for something that has been so transformative in my life, to see a Black woman in the captain's chair just takes me there emotionally. So, I think intent matters. And so, yeah, where execution failed, they got my heart and intent. So, loved it.
So I feel like Discovery in season 3 started to be its own thing, right? I mean, season 2 was a lot of let's bring the Enterprise in and let's bring all the Kirk and Spock, Pike and Spock and blah blah blah. They had to. It was interesting for them to shoot into the 32nd century. Um, it was a very challenging thing for them to do, a very creative thing for them to do, and a risky thing for them to do, to take it so far out beyond anything Star Trek had done before, timeline wise. But I think it worked for them, and I think that they did a really good job in um, telling character stories. They had their characters down really well. I mean, some of the stories and some of the things that happened this season, I had some questions about, which we can get into later. But for the most part, I thought from a character standpoint, from a representation standpoint, they did a really great job. They took risks. They took risks with redefining the Vulcans and the Romulans and Spock and other things. And I think that they did a really, really fine job for what it was. So that's my quick summary.
Sorry, couldn't unmute. All right, someone put on a timer for 1 minute 30 seconds. Audience, warn me if I'm going over. I'm gonna try to do it. I wrote notes. I love all of Star Trek, like everything. I'm one of those people who sees it as like one big gigantic story. Like I don't have a favorite Star Trek or a Star Trek that I only watch. And it's fine if you do. Star Trek's set up to be that way. But for me, I like it all. I'll watch even fan films because like if it like aligns closely to the main storyline or whatever, and I even sometimes consider them like part of Star Trek. So because of that and other factors like prequels, other than the Star Wars prequels just bother me because one of the things that I have come to expect from Star Trek, or rather I would like to see from Star Trek, is for it to always move forward. So when Enterprise came on, I was like, oh, no, let's go forward. So then when Discovery came out, it was set in the past. I was like already like, all right, well, I didn't give Enterprise a chance. I'll give Discovery a chance, even though I was like, kind of like, oh no, it's another prequel. And then the other thing about me is that so far, other than Enterprise being the exception also, so Star Trek did a really good job of a design continuity, if you will, or a visual continuity. So I was very married to that. So when Discovery looked like it should have taken place after Next Generation, I was like so mad. I was like, no, why doesn't anything look like, of its time? And I was like one of these people caught up in all the minutia. So when Discovery went to the future, I was like set free from all that bullshit. And I was like, okay, now I can just like enjoy the show. I can stop like, oh, what is that? Why does that bother me? Like none of that. And it was all wonder and new and it was exactly kind of what I've been waiting for a Star Trek series too. I'm so glad Discovery did it because I already started falling in love with the characters and I already like was starting to be invested. And I really I was rooting for Burnham. Like, at first she's like this trouble, maker, if you will. And then later she becomes this glorious captain in the future that's kind of bringing the light back to the darkness that the universe is experiencing from the burn. So Star Trek Discovery season 3 was so refreshing and so wonderful. I think I liked every single episode, but I especially loved the episode Unification Part 3. So that's like I went bonkers. My head exploded when that episode, and the Takal and Ket. I love that. We should call it Takal and Ket if anyone wants to. It was all fun. But yeah, aside from that, season 4 is my favorite so far, so I can't wait to talk about it in more detail. I didn't have a chance to rewatch this season episode by episode, but I've seen it like 3 times or 4 times already the whole season, so I'm pretty familiar with it. You guys will help me fill in the blanks. How is that?
I think opposite everybody else, season 1 is still my favorite because they brought the funny. There was funny and irreverence, and I found that after I finished watching season 3, they really doubled down on the drama, and it was drama that didn't necessarily speak to me. And I usually, the thing that I love about Star Trek is that when you finish watching a season, you feel sort of uplifted and optimistic and hopeful. And season 3 for me had much less of that. There was not necessarily a balance between the heightened drama and kind of the balance that humor brings. There were brief moments, and there were scenes throughout the season that I really enjoyed in isolation. But as a whole, I really sort of felt depressed after the end of the season, where I was just kind of like, it's sort of emotionally exhausting in a way where I don't necessarily believe there's much of a reprieve. And maybe I just need something much more obvious than nuanced, much more obvious than, like literally just hand it to me. I don't know. That could just be a reflection of where my mind is right now. But if we're calling new Trek, of the new Treks, this is the one with the least amount of humor to me versus Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks. And so for me, the response is I feel a little depressed. I feel a little hopeless by the end of it, which is not really something that I want to embrace, for obvious reasons. So, it's kind of like the apple. It looks like an apple. It tastes sort of like an apple. But for me, it was an apple made out of shit. And there were moments where I could swallow it, but not without forgetting that it's shit. So, and that's probably harsher than really necessary, but that's my overall. Shorter than Sohail.
I believe 100% that she timed herself and she timed Sohail, and that was an actual accurate call out on the time. My feelings about season 3 are a little bit of a mixed bag. I did not enjoy it as much first watch through. I have grown to enjoy it after watching it a couple more times since it originally aired. My struggle with it was actually not as much the story as it was the mystery. So the burn being what it was messed up my feelings about the entire season. And so by rewatching it and just sort of setting that into its little compartment, I was able to enjoy all of the very positive things about season 3. And there are many. But the ultimate resolution of the burn bugged me, and as much as I don't want to disagree with Johnny on his first onstage visit with us or time with us, the Osira did not land for me, and I think my issue was not with the actress. It was not with really anything other than I kind of wished that the bad guy had just been a human. Like there was something about an Orion being the enemy this time through, or being the big bad. Um, we've never had a lot of, until Tendi, a lot of positive, both Tendis, a lot of positive representation for Orions. And so having the Orion be the bad guy would kind of be like having the Klingon be the bad guy. Like, it's like, okay, we get it. It's just another Star Trek bad person. The idea of it just being like, let's make this century and all of the things that led us to where we are post burn, like as different and unusual as possible. How cool would it have been if the ringleader of this horrible organization was a human? That would have been more potent for me. So I was a little bit let down by Osira, and I was a little bit let down, well, a lot let down by the explanation for the burn. Other than that, tons of positive things. I loved That Hope Is You Part 1 was phenomenal. All the way through to getting Burnham in the captain's seat. That scene I've watched over and over again. I've watched that clip a million times. Um, uh, all things Grudge, and this I don't know if this counts as the first one for the evening, but David Ajala can wear that uniform. I'm sorry, I'm just saying it. Um, in was it
He can
People of
wear
Earth?
my uniform too.
In People of Earth, ladies, come on now, like that was intense. Um, but yeah, overall very positive, but had some sticking points that are big parts of the story. But small sticking points for me that were negative.
Yeah, I agree with most of what's been said. I really enjoyed this season. I thought they had amazing visuals as always on this show. I will I will tempt fate by mentioning the it's too dark of it all. Like I want to see these amazing things that you all have created. So give us some additional lighting on the outside, please. Like the Navarre ships that are like these teeny tiny things off to the sides of the screen. It was really bummed that like, oh, we're getting Navarre ships and then you just can't see them. It really bummed me out. So, but other than that, like the visuals are incredible. I thought there was some really good world building. And I'll say really good, but not great, because some things felt a little rushed. The execution on a few things felt a little wonky. I will say though, I thought the mystery of this season, the way that they went about building the thing worked for me. The pacing was really good. We've got what's going on Earth. Okay, now we have this symbiont in a human that we need to deal with. Now we're going to see what's going on with Trill as part of the overall story. Like this season did a much better job than any of the others, in my opinion, with like organically building towards their mystery. Even if I would agree the what it was at the end was um something. We'll get into it, but like I said, I think there was just some wonky execution with some of the bits, and I agree with Krista was saying about like the tone. I feel like they went a little too heavy all of the time when I think they could have given us some more lighter moments with the crew, given how heavy the rest of the universe was feeling throughout the season with like, oh my God, the Federation is gone. This is not what we were expecting. So a few more lighter moments sprinkled throughout would have been really helpful in that regard. And yeah, Osira, I will. Well, this is a great segue into the next thing. Is just talking about we've got a new season, so we've got a bunch of new characters, right? We've got Book, Adira, Gray, Rin, Admiral Daddy, Admiral Vance, Tarina, Osira, Mr. Kovich, possibly some others that I may have forgotten. Lots of fun stuff here. I'm curious.
There's like a ton of like smaller smaller appearances. It's a big show. This season was
Yes.
like big, yeah.
We've got Osira's henchman. We've got scientist Ken Mitchell as a was he human or was he? I believe he was.
I
Human.
got the impression he was human, but I don't know.
And plenty of others, but lots of fun new characters in this new century. Osira being the big bad, I feel conflicted because I liked her portrayal in the scenes with Admiral Vance. That stuff was funny. That stuff was interesting. We had like calling out the Federation on some of its bullshit, because let's be real, some of the Federation's bullshit is just bullshit. We had some depth there. I think part of the problem was throughout the season they were talking about, oh, Syra, she's evil, and then when we see her, it's like, well, she's just a leader of a different organization. We only saw one of their ships. There wasn't any of the like they made it out to be like they are equal to the Federation and they've got fleets just like we've got a small fleet left, and so the execution was just wonky there. But where I think they got it right was with people like Tarina and building up Navarre. I also loved Unification Part 3. I love a good debate moment. Super fun. And then getting Dr. Burnham back in a kind of ridiculous, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but like let's just go with it because I love Sonia Soon kind of way. Super fun stuff. So let's throw it out there. Who wants to share their thoughts on some of the new characters we got this season? Anybody want to let me bring this down, throw up a hand and let us know what you thought. Any characters that we have or haven't talked about yet? Trevor?
Vance worked for me in many ways.
Yeah, he did.
And yeah, I mean, in all the ways. Kovic does not, and hasn't, and still is talking about world building. What the fuck is his job? Like, he's just, and sometimes he's Kovic, sometimes he's Dr. Kovic, sometimes he's Mr. Kovic, sometimes he, like, why is he there? Like, I don't understand. Like, there just needs to be, like, just make him the vice president, or tell
Yeah.
me he's the head of the undersecretary for the United Nations. Like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah,
just
he
tell me
needed
what
a
the fuck he
title
does.
for sure.
Yes,
Like,
something.
I like his portrayal. I think, like we talked about this last week. I disagree with the consensus that I think him and Tig are like, hey, we want you two to be in Star Trek, not we want you two to be actors in Star Trek. But yeah, I totally agree. They needed to give, like, who are you? Why are you here? Give us a title, something.
Yeah. And the deadpan delivery thing works if he's like the foil to Tig. Just having him in every scene going, I really think you should inspect the like, what, does he even blink? Like, it's just a little, it's a little disconcerting. Gray worked for me as a character, and this is the only time I think I've ever said this on any Salon. The actor did not work for me at all. So loved the idea of the character, loved the idea of, but would have preferred a little bit more world building, of like a host's consciousness or memories kind of dislodged or not sorted because of the way in which the transfer happened, or the transfer happened to go to somebody who wasn't Trill. But there was never really an explanation as to why or what actually occurred. Like, all it would have taken was, I see that your 12th host's consciousness was disassociated because of the abrupt transfer, like something. Like, I don't know, I just made it up and it sounded more believable than what we got. So that would have been really nice. And I already picked on Osira and I won't anymore. But yeah, my only other complaint is actually about Navarre being named Navarre, and we'll get into that later.
I have to co-sign with Trev on my love for Book, Mr. David Ajala. And what I loved most about his character is that he played so against type or stereotype, in that he was emotionally intelligent and brave and passionate in a way that um, just didn't feel typical of what you see, I think, for that strong sort of black male lead. So I appreciated the way he just expressed love and compassion, but was still just strong and brave. I think it broke a very important, just kind of, like I said, stereotype. Um, and that was really significant. It was not lost on me at all. Plus, I agree. He looked good in the uniform. And then the episode with the titties out, work.
I think that's a problematic ally. No, I'm just kidding. I love it. I nominate it to be the best. I loved Rin a lot. I thought that was cool. I really liked the Andorians. I think Discovery was the first show to introduce us to Andorians having like 6 genders or something like that. Like, it's some complicated but interesting kind of a gender grid, if you will. But anyways, yeah, Rin was awesome. I also liked the actor Noah Averbach-Katz, who's married to Mary Wiseman, being just a Trekkie whose dreams came true. That was fun to watch. I don't know if you guys saw anything about that, but he's really cool, and he's an advocate for if I may get on a soapbox for a second, Stan, for insulin prices, keeping the price of insulin affordable for people. and that's it. Yeah.
I thought that the new characters, it was interesting to see them all. I was kind of hoping, although I know they wouldn't have done this when they first talked about it was a trill. I was thinking, is this going to be Dax? Kind of wish it was Dax. That would have been kind of fun, but it's a bigger universe than that. I think that they did a good job with all the characters. I kind of like the character of Kovich. He is mysterious. He's got that sort of X-Files-y mysteriousness about him, which I think works. But for the most part, I think that what they did with the Vulcans and the Romulans and with the new characters there, I thought that was good. The reference to Navarre actually goes back to a book way back when, so it's really a throwback to a deep cut into Trek history for that. We could talk about that
Wasn't it
later.
on Enterprise too? The ship Navarre.
It was the name of a short story in Star Trek New Voyages back in the
Okay.
70s. And so that's where they picked it up from, I believe. But anyway, I thought the new characters worked really well. I think that they did a good job with them. There's not really one that really stood out to me more than any other, except for the fact that I really like the idea that there's a romance building with Saru and his Vulcan Beau or Bo.
I can't believe there's no Carl love. I loved Carl.
Carl was great. I agree.
In a drama-saturated season, Carl sitting in the middle of nowhere with the door to nowhere, just being a snarky interaction with Giorgio, and I was like, I'm here for this. It was a nice breather. It was a nice relief. And also he's CSI. And
Oh, the actor?
I didn't consider Carl a new character, even though the persona was new. That's the only reason why Carl wasn't on that screen for sure.
But Carl, we learned amazing
not
stuff
having
about
Carl on it. I'm just saying, like, of all the new characters, I think they all contributed well. I can't remember her name, but I like the Romulan Vulcan. I don't know which.
Tarina, the president.
Because of where that goes with Saru.
I don't think they definitively say. I mean, she plays as probably Vulcan by blood, but
I think she's like Vulcan, Kardashian, and I think she's Bajoran. I think she's like she's Sky-raised.
No, that's Rillick in season 4. We're talking about Tarina.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. But I like her.
The one next to Daddy Vance.
That goes. And Osira, I like her because she just eats scenery. Book, I mean, how do you not just stand there? I don't care what you fucking do. I mean, that man is tasty on a stick. Give me a break.
In the arms of the angel.
I think Johnny and I met him, Krista, at Star Trek Chicago.
That's not problematic at all. It's problematic.
He looks everyone in the eye with sincerity, David Ajala. He just like gives you his time. It's really amazing.
And what's great about him is that he has an irreverence to him. Like, he can always pull a joke. He doesn't like take everything so seriously that he doesn't that the interaction loses some kind of I don't want to say cuteness, but there's interest in those interactions. There's interest in everyone that he's interacting with. He does it in such a way that you're really engaged. And that's a real credit to the actor himself, aside from just being.
Well, the character is also amazing because of the work he does. It's all for conservation of those animals. And
I agree with Joanne, just his emotional presence. He is not, his, you know, his parts don't shrink because he feels something. He is in touch with it. He has a code. He has a fucking code. It's a code, and it's a code that is relatable. You want to be on this guy's team. David Cronenberg, I'm there for scenes with Michelle Yeoh. That's fine. With her blinking like a spaz. I'm there for it. I liked the intellectual calisthenics that were going on in that scene. I mean, overall, it was, you know, they introduced a lot of characters. I think mostly for Adira, what I felt about Adira was that in some ways, there was a disservice to her as a mechanism to build on Hugh and Paul. I didn't like that it like her storyline suddenly hooked
Sorry, Krista, real quick. It's their story. They use they them pronouns.
Sorry. That their story hooked into Paul and Hugh instead of just focusing on Paul. Because when we last left them, they were just starting to get back together, and it's like instead of exploring that, we go well, let's just do a pseudo adoption or whatever. And I may be looking at that from a purely white person, heterosexual, who doesn't have pronouns, and that, you know, may be my fault. But ultimately, that character, I was like, you could have served that character better. All respect to Johnny, who enunciated his feelings on the matter. I don't want to discount anything that you said, but for me, viewing that, I thought, well, that they used her as
them.
It was kind of cheap, in my opinion, in my very isolated opinion. Let's not get it twisted.
I have to. Oh, I was just going to say I had to agree with Krista on the Paul and Hugh thing kind of being rushed in order to accommodate the storyline. Does serve to undermine the storyline, because the storyline was important, and that didn't happen. And the only other thing I was going to mention, just because I don't know if we'll have time and I don't know if it'll fit in any other place, and it's probably more apt for next week, so I'm sorry, but we were talking about David Ajala and how amazing he is, and I think I've mentioned this once before, but I don't think I've mentioned it on one that's recorded, so I wanted to do that so that more people hear it. During season 4, there was a very powerful scene with David Ajala's character, with Book, and it sort of triggered some stuff with me for like a grief situation, and it was Book dealing with his grief. I messaged David Ajala on Twitter, and it took him like a week and a half, which I wasn't expecting any response, but he actually responded and wrote one of, like, I periodically just look back at it and still cry reading it. Like, he was incredibly thoughtful. He's an amazing human being. And if you see him at a convention or anything, just go stand in his line and pay whatever you need to pay, because he is awesome.
It was actually just a rejection. Please don't ever message me again. How dare you?
But it turns out
written
that, like,
beautifully.
So it's no, it's
That's beautiful. Let's get into this plot, y'all. We have a lot that happened this season. I want to start with it won't be exactly episode by episode, but bigger plot points. Like I said earlier, they do build this bigger mystery for us in kind of a slow burn, haha, pun intended. But we start in a new century. We get Burnham there for a year by herself or with Book, and then Discovery joins them. What do y'all think about this new landscape? You know, like not necessarily talking about the burn yet, but there's this giant thing that happened, and now the Federation has dwindled. We old allies are now enemies. We don't know about Earth yet. What are our thoughts about finding out that the Federation doesn't quite exist in this century? Johnny.
I know some people had issues with this first episode, especially when it came to the species that was like featured in this episode, because I do think that Trek has a bad habit of introducing very, very cool species, especially on a physiological level, and then not like ever showing them again, or never like going to detail. However, I think one of the things that I loved was seeing Burnham kind of have to challenge herself and ask herself, well, if there isn't going to be a federation, what is it? What is my life going to be? Because I'm here and the federation isn't here, and I have to do something. And for me personally, I'm personally at a point in my life, especially where I know I could do one thing that is stable and great and not easy, but like beneficial. Or I can do something else that is challenging and hard and will completely like it could be very, very good, but or it could be very, very bad. And I feel like that's what Burnham was going through, where when it came to like the Federation, there's so much security, no pun intended, but there's so much security and so much uniformity. And even though Burnham is known as a mutineer, even though she's known as kind of being like a rebel, I still feel like most Federation officers are very by the book. That's why I feel like Burnham she's very like, in my opinion, I think she's very half Kirk and a little bit half Picard as well too. I think she takes very big risks like Kirk does, but then at the same time she has like those core values as a Federation officer. So I loved her see her like entertaining the idea of like when I find love, will I just hang out with Book and just live my life and try to do a little bit of good that I do can do. Um, but yeah, I really liked the first episode. I think they did a really good job, and I like that she was alone for a year because I feel like that made it realistic. I think that made it. I thought that made it very realistic in terms of traveling to the new century, and I also believe that they did a good job of because I had a fear after season two of they're gonna go to the future, but Trek, they're just gonna come back like they're gonna come back season one. I'm sorry, episode one, season three, but they didn't. So I was very happy about that.
Can I
I
say
forgot the question, so I'll cede the floor.
Can I say that the first episode, the one thing that sticks out to me as an example of hope throughout the entire season was that scene where she meets the guy in the station who hasn't been signed in. He just goes through the routine every day, and she makes him say the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever it is, and they hang the flag. And I thought, okay, because at the end you see him and he's actually seen it through, that this has come full circle. And that was one of the few moments of hope that kind of choked me up a little bit. And I believe it was the first episode. The other thing that I thought was interesting is the way that the way they wrote it sort of gave an explanation for why it was okay for Burnham to be impulsive, but they did it after all the impulsive stuff. So writing her as, kind of finding herself in the year that she's been gone and the year of being a courier and kind of operating on a whole different scale of what is right and what is wrong. And then having her come back and experience difficulty trying to reconcile the rules inherent to the Federation and what she learned was likely much more effective, minus all the bureaucracy, in the year that she really got to be who she was as a person, who her real person is. I thought that was very interesting. And here's a Bev alert. It seemed like it was kind of very much Bev going off out of the Federation and going to do medical on the outskirts and really having to deal with pirates, deal with all of these things. So I like when they take the characters and they make them sort of rebellious and not necessarily taking things on the word of the Federation, and they rebel a little bit, and they took it a little further on this one and actually gave her a reason for why she could be like that, gave her a reason that would form the basis of why things needed to be different. And it validates when Vance at the end says, I thought you were wrong, but apparently your way was correct, and we maybe need to rethink how we reformulate everything. And the paranoia isn't working. That's a hindrance to what we're trying to do. So I like that.
I think I am alone in finding the end of the first episode, while I agree it was very hopeful and lovely, also I thought it was kind of cheesy as hell. Only in that two aspects. One, Homeboy's going insane. Like there's no chance that you are the only person there for 40 years and you don't go batshit insane. Like, we all remember the pandemic Lovato. We all remember being isolated. Like those of us without
I don't
partners.
know. I think he's a true believer, Stan. I don't know.
That is, I'm sorry, the Federation is not enough. Like that is not how our brains work. And the second piece to me was like, I get it. Discovery is going to have their emotional moments, but the flag, I'm like, I cannot put up this flag. Only an officer can. Dude, put up the fucking flag. It's a symbol. It is a symbol, and if you believe in it, put it up on your dream board and keep scanning for signals. It was lovely. I'm a jaded bitch, but whatever. Did anybody else have thoughts about the
Mr.
state of the
Sahil-
universe before we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I do. I mean, the
Go ahead,
thinking
Ken,
I
but-
had. Go ahead, Sohail.
I was just gonna say, I really respect Mr. Sahil, but I think he did unfurl the flag, like, and just lied about it. I'm sure he, like, come on.
Yes.
I agree. Who wouldn't do it?
So, yeah, I mean, this show jumping 9 centuries into the future, right? So if we go back 9 centuries to the 12th century, and if someone from the 12th century showed up here, if a ship sailing from the 12th century showed up in 2024, would it be able to do anything like the Discovery does? I mean, it just doesn't. And with technology moving so much faster and faster and faster, so there's a suspension of disbelief to say, okay, this ship from the 23rd century is going to show up in the 32nd century and basically be the Buck Rogers in the 25th century solving all the crisis and everything. The only way that they could have really done that in any sort of leap of faith is to say the Federation has been destroyed because of the burn and all of that. I mean, even that is still a bit of a stretch, but be that as it may, that was one of my biggest problems with this is jumping 9 centuries, projecting it today. Like I said, if a sailing ship from the 1200s showed up today, what? So that was a big leap, but they pulled it off from the point of view of the story, and you have to sort of take that leap of faith. And like I said, the only way they could have done that is if the Federation had gone through the cataclysm that it had. But even so, 9 centuries later, the Discovery should have been so out of date. But anyway, that's my gripe about it.
Johnny?
Ken, I definitely have asked myself the same questions you've asked, because this was something I had an issue with. But one way that I like to look at it is there are technological booms and then there can be plateaus. And I saw that period as a technological plateau. Now, being that they are in the future and there's the Federation is composed of so many different races, obviously there's so many different technologies where there really couldn't be a plateau because there's always someone developing something new. But the way that I saw it was that the impact of the burn was so scientifically and culturally significant to so many species and so many planets that it kind of like it just wiped away any thought or any idea of technological advancement, because it's like that is not the priority. Like, not even trillions of people died. I don't even want to say trillions, probably whatever, I don't know what comes out there, trillion or a gazillion, I don't know, but probably a gazillion people died.
She actually said millions, so it wasn't
Oh, it was
quite
just
as
millions?
bad. Yeah.
Okay, I would expect more.
'Cause it was the ships
that's
that blew
still-
up.
It's all Federation and Starfleet, so it's a lot of the brain trust of the Federation died instantly, like, which is kind of to Johnny's point, like it hit, then everything hit a plateau in terms of like you have to rebuild all this knowledge. Like that's, it's like it's crazy. Actually, yeah, that makes me make more sense of it because I kind of was wondering how it worked too, Johnny. So thank you.
Yeah, I think, and like Chris is talking about the headcanon, like they do and it's a little bit of headcanon, but it's also, they do mention the temporal wars. They went through some shit, then the burn happens. So becoming stagnant for the last 100 years. I think book mentions that for various reasons, they can't use slipstream in certain parts in massive swaths of space. So like there have
Was
been
it the Gorn?
advancements.
The Gorn did something to
The
subspace.
Gorn
That was
fucked up a
also
bunch
like
of
those
shit.
references, yeah.
So yeah, all kinds of fun. But I mean, I think what we're really missing here is like the most important advancement in the 32nd century, and that's the good shit. We got the good shit in the 32nd century. I just want a brief moment to talk about how amazing Sonequa Martin Green is, but especially in this scene, like talk about adding in some humor, like more of this, like the way that it allowed her to give some exposition about like what she's going through in a funny way that isn't just, the crying, which we'll talk about. It makes sense. They've all been through trauma. You're going to cry if you go through half of what these people go through. But she got to be funny. She also got to poke. I don't know if they did this on purpose, but I felt like they were kind of poking a little bit of fun at the criticism that is lobbied against her and her character, but just her making fun of Book's name. Just fucking loved it. It was delightful. I'm looking at the time and seeing that we're coming up on an hour, so I'm going to breeze back through. Let's talk about the paranoid people of Earth. We finally get to Earth, and then we're like, oh my God, shit's different. We get Tal in a human. What the hell? Earth is weird, paranoid as fuck. What do people think about the state of Earth in the 32nd century? Not part of the Federation. This is huge.
I've got a lot of thoughts, but I'll try to be very brief. But I just love that they threw Captain Burnham, Michael, a year ahead of the rest of the crew because it gave us a chance to like re-meet the character, like to get to know the character in a new way because we've only associated her, with the crew and everything. So that whole setup was great, and then introducing us to the landscape of the galaxy was really awesome. And I really thought that the Earth stuff was poignant at the time and still today about how I feel the vibe. I don't know, to use a simple word, is in like the United States. We seem to be becoming more isolationist and weird, and that's kind of what they are like. In the, what were they called, the paranoid people of Earth, but whatever they had a new name, I forget what it was, but what the biggest blow to me was they had ceded from the Federation, so they were no longer a part of the United Federation planet, and neither was Navarre, I think. So it was crazy. Yeah, it was a big deal. It was a good landscape that they put together, and Michael Burnham and then the crew, of course, who arrived later, and even wake her up from, she kind of falls into this despair and like she's like, shit, how am I going to change all this? And then all of a sudden a year later, the gift of the discovery and the crew is there. They're not lost in time, and she's like, wow, I can do something. It's awesome. I don't know.
But it all makes sense. The burn was some unexplainable thing that destroyed so much that it seems to follow is totally natural that everybody would go Lord of the Flies, right? You all go to your corners and you get all Lord of the Flies, and you're struggling to survive. It's not, you're not struggling for luxuries. You're struggling for the basics. And so the world that she falls into literally is the result of resources being very limited, resources becoming extinct, and she's going to do what she has to do. I love that she went off with him for a year, that she experienced what it was post-apocalyptic, death knell. I also liked that the aside from the she's completely high and verbally vomiting everywhere, which was absolutely hysterical. I really appreciated that the answer to this whole thing was coded in a song. And it's a song that didn't have anything to do with her. It was a song that had to do with a number of other things, all sort of coalescing and coming together and going, hey, wait a minute, hey, wait a minute, hey, wait a minute. And it touches all these other people. But it was very refreshing to have it not be a Red Angel kind of thing. It was there. It was meant to be decoded. It was something that held the answer, but you almost had to be out of time to understand the importance of what was happening. So you have to ask, if these guys didn't vault into the future, if they didn't vault into a time after the burn, would the galaxy, would the universe continue on their Lord of the Flies way? Or is she really, as Carl said, right exactly where she needs to be, because they're the only ones that haven't had 9 centuries of advancement and AI reliance and all of that to recognize that the song associated with so many things is not coincidental. There's a point there and they need to look for it. And you know, maybe I'm searching, but I liked that it didn't have anything to do with her, but I also liked that they were the only people as a group that could figure it out, that had the capability of figuring it out because they were out of time.
Speaking of paranoid people of Earth, welcome, Will.
Hello. Sorry I'm late. Hello.
Tell us
I
your
have
thoughts
arrived.
about this episode.
Oh, the people of Earth. I like
And
that
then I
they
want to
took a
throw it to
chance.
Joanne.
Huh? The what?
Give
What'd
us
you
your
say?
thoughts, and then I want to throw it to Joanne. I want
Oh, okay.
to
I'll be
give
quick. I'll be
space
quick.
for folks we
Yeah.
haven't heard from yet.
I thought that this was great that they took a huge swing in terms of what it meant for that humans are not the center point of the Federation and Starfleet. That this is extended beyond humanity. This is something for everyone. That this is not something that is a ring that only the humans hold. That this is something that is more about the community that's around it. I did find it very odd the kind of why Earth left and all that. Like it was a little uncharacteristic of humans that we know. But I didn't think. I think they're making a larger point. They're being a little heavy-handed, but at the end of the day, I do think it landed. But I do like the idea that the Federation is not just centered on Earth. That this is more about the community at large and not necessarily just about humans. There we go. That's how I feel about that episode. It was fine.
It was fine. And to your point, kind of will. I thought the response of Earth kind of being discentered and kind of the source of kind of the destabilization of the Federation or whatever. I thought their response to kind of just completely turn inward and be kind of super paranoid and, who goes there? What's the password? Um, was was an interesting response, like when you're not the center. You can't, you don't want to play with anybody else. Like you take your shit and you go home. Um, so I thought that that was an interesting response. And I don't know, but I don't know that in my mind, that kind of reconciled, that would be the level of response. But I don't know. I let it go. It was not my favorite episode.
It does seem like they're making a point about like ethno-nationalism, and this is being like humans being like the white cisgendered man, and that
Mm-hmm.
being this kind of like the universe doesn't revolve around you anymore, so now you're gonna take your toys and go home. And I think that they make a point of it. I kind of knew what was happening. I don't know. Sometimes I felt that they come at you with the theme right in the first 5 minutes, and then they tell you the entire time instead of letting you catch it at the end. I feel like this season in particular has a real trouble with the tell me's, the tell me, don't show me. Like they constantly telling me things and they're not showing it to me, so I'm not seeing it, which is hard with
Siren
TV
is
being a visual.
evil.
I know, yeah, but yeah, she doesn't do anything necessarily evil. She just seems like a woman running a business, and God forbid a woman have a hobby and own a business like that. She just please, like
I
God
thought she had
forbid.
like a body count though. Will.
But I wanted
I
to
thought
see
she
her
was
do
good.
Yeah,
it. I wanted
but
to
that's
see
his
her
point is
killing
we were
people.
told, never shown, except for her nephew, but like
Yeah,
not
and
enough.
all that stuff,
But he
right?
needed to die.
Yeah,
The
I
nephew
need
needed
I
to
need
die.
to
was
see her
played
bomb
by
a
the
planet. I
actress
needed to
that
do something crazy.
I thought she was
I don't
played by
know.
the actress that got into trouble for buying her kid's entry into the collegiate system.
We won't
She
even talk about that
does.
actress.
No, isn't she?
She does
Isn't she
look a
the
little
daughter?
bit like Felicity.
She
She's
looked
the
like
daughter
her,
of
but
Margot
then I looked
Kidder.
her up and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
Mhm.
Margot Kidder, and I was like, oh, okay, I see it. But
All I could think
Like
of.
for the
Lois Lane,
longest time, I
Margot?
was like,
Hmm. Yeah, all I could
honey,
think of every time I saw her was "You've got me, who's got you?" Which is
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
Anyway,
I
I
don't
had
get the reference.
it's a Superman reference, and it was
I
a
like
bad
that
one,
her
I
shade
and
of
the
get
only I
it,
remember.
her skin tone is similar to like what we think of like in Wicked, like the Wicked Witch of the West. Like I love that.
That was the other issue that I had, but the overall with the People of Earth concept, I loved everything that everyone said and agree with everyone about everything that everyone said, and I love the casting of Oded playing Vance, but it was a little bit weird that the head of Starfleet is a human male.
I'm gonna disagree, but I'm
Bring
gonna
it.
also thank you for that beautiful segue into the next topic. I'm reading / a little bit rereading because I skimmed it the first time. Star Trek Articles of the Federation, the novel.
It's
I love it. It's a little hokey in some places. It's a little too like she convinced him with her speech, and like her speech was actually objectively terrible. But whatever. What I do find interesting about the state of the Federation in the book is they mention that colonies of various races that actually come from different planets can be part of the Federation as well. So, like Cestus 3 is a human colony, but it is a Federation world.
Mhm.
And so I think of it that way. Vance may be human, but his connection to Earth is different. His connection is Starfleet, not Earth.
You know what would have made that beautiful?
As if they said it.
A single line of dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he was Admiral Vance of Cestus 3 or
Yeah.
Of any other colony, but that he was just random human dude. Again, love Oded, love the idea that they didn't cast a white cis het male in the role, but you know they did give us one with Kovic, so it just felt a little. To take us away from the human centric, it brought us back to something human centric. And I've already ranted about Kovic, so I won't do it again. But
He was
I don't
my
need both
first
of them.
Dadmiral. I feel like who else sees him as a Dadmiral?
Yes.
No.
He
Yes.
is he is
Right?
gorgeous.
I think we're too close in age for me to call him a daddy, but but he can
Oh.
get it. He can get it.
Mhm.
That's not a question.
But
Would the next thing be Grandmiral? No, I'm just sorry.
girl, stop. You're trying too hard. But it works. Let's talk about the state of Starfleet and the Federation. We talked a little bit about this with like the first episode, finding out like, oh, it's not what it was. But they finally get to Starfleet Federation headquarters. We see a bunch of random ass ships of various designs. Like the 32nd century is thrown right in our face. Like, oh, this shit is different. And then they get on there, and Bellhop Dadmiral is like, we don't fucking know y'all. You just showed up out of nowhere. To Ken's point, you're 900-year-old rust bucket. Like, you want to come in here telling us what to do? Sit down. It's a different kind of Starfleet, just like it was a different kind of Earth. It was rough. That episode was a little rough to watch. I was like, oh man, they are the station is pristine, but the attitude is rough as hell.
And that's why Sahil never put up that fucking flag. He didn't want Admiral Vance coming like, "What are you doing, you non-com?"
You're right. There
Um,
you go. There you go. Yes.
That's when the Federation shows up. But when you're not completely adhering to the most random regulations. Ooh, they're cops. They're the future's cops. Gross. A cob.
That opening scene was brilliant, though. Don't you guys think, like, how the programmable matter like is introduced and all the alarm clock parrot and all that? It was great.
We're backtracking. We're talking about
Sorry,
Starfleet.
sorry.
it was great though.
Ken
I-
Rogers
I-
came off of mute. Let's go to Ken and then
Yeah.
Will.
I think I don't know. I mean, I think that it was interesting to see how they were updating it. The programmable matter. So they did have some of the new technology, and it does, to the point. I don't think that there was a problem with them basically saying, "Okay, guys, you're 900 years old. Sit down, shut up in the back," and then they had to prove themselves. But you knew they were going to, right? It's the show's called Star Trek Discovery, so it was ultimately going to get there. So I didn't have a problem with it. I thought the designs were great. I thought that the look and feel of that that episode and that show and this whole season, taking it into the 32nd century, was, I thought, very well done. So that's all I got to say about that.
It seemed like they also made peace with the notion that Starfleet was now decidedly military. Like, we're soldiers and we're protecting the remnants of, you know, whatever the Federation is. So I don't know that they ever said it, but that's what it felt like.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that.
Yeah, the
Scientific
depiction of the
exploration.
difference between the two has always been a little murky, and it got even murkier in season 3. And we're going to talk about some nonsense next week for sure. Let's go to Will and then Johnny.
Well, was it Kovic who said that that Starfleet and the Federation are completely indistinguishable now? They're kind of one and the same. I always felt that they shouldn't have. Like, it doesn't make, they were too interconnected in a way where it was strange to me. But neither here nor there.
Which season 4 fixes with the president, right? Like, so that kind
Right.
of fixed it. Yeah.
A little bit,
real
yeah.
quick, I just want to say TOS established that they're all in like a kind of service, and I think that's where the first idea of like a rank or whatever you call it, chain of command, came from. And Star Trek's kind of largely followed that. Next Generation, I think, broke it in an interesting way. It's different, but yeah, Discovery kind of follows suit.
Good point.
Or that's the Federation default, or Starfleet's default. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was TOS established it as a scientific. The weapons are only defensive. So, but I think this show makes it much more of a militaristic thing.
Johnny, I think you were supposed to be next, but Ken, TOS also makes it pretty clear that when war is approaching, it will be Starfleet's responsibility to respond.
Yes.
I've always felt that Starfleet was always very much, I don't hit unless I'm hit first, or unless I know there is a great enough threat that if you hit me, I'm gonna die, that I gotta hit you first. That is really it when it comes to Starfleet, with the exception of like section 31. Me personally, I don't know why, but so many people I've noticed in the fandom have a very hard time recognizing that Starfleet or the Federation are military organizations. I'm like, how do you not compare this to the real world? They have phasers. They enact laws. Like, you you can literally get arrested in Starfleet. I'll always say, like, Starfleet officers at their very core, they are a combination of military soldiers and cops who happen to be scientists. That's it. In the same way, in our own armed services, in the army, the military, the Coast Guard, there are science personnel who are there. Their job is for science, but they're also trained soldiers. And I feel like if you can have that understanding when it comes to the real life, why can't you have that understanding when it comes to like Starfleet? And I really liked what they did, because I feel like what it established was this sociological idea, like the sociological imagination, this idea of taking something that we love so much, because so many of us as Trekkies, we love the idea of the Federation, we love the idea of Star Trek, and so it's like, imagine if what we know as of Starfleet and the Federation is completely different. There's no more kumbaya holding hands. Yeah, do you want to join Starfleet? People left. That's the part that got me. When you found out that worlds were leaving the Federation, that is what was like, oh, this isn't like a normal season. It's not going to be all the Federation is just going to save the day. Like they actually have to work towards something. So I really like the change, and I really like it being set in space because I feel like similar to what something that Trev was saying, I feel like it took it away from being just about humans into all species.
That's a great segue to talking about Navarre. You know, they mention Navarre leaves the Federation because the Federation forgot some of its core mandates and its core worlds. They were pushing Navarre to do things they didn't want to do, and they were saying, actually, we shouldn't push this new drive technology. For a long time, it was believed that Navarre caused the burn, and so they end up leaving the Federation. But a lovely little Spock moment. His mission does succeed. His reunification mission succeeds. Um, Anybody want to throw out some thoughts about reunification part 3 and Navarre?
For me, this episode kind of is just instant classic, if you will, and it's like what you just said already, Stan. The everyone's like, oh, he's gonna speak for a long time, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, but but no, I promise.
Everybody go off camera. No, I'm checking on my dog. Sorry, Sohail.
No, I know, but it's because I'm like already nuts for this episode. But what you said, what you said is really poignant, that like not only the Spock's mission get completed, but it's really cool that Michael gets to see her brother's entire legacy. Like that must be like such a relief to know what happened to the people you left behind. I mean, they're like Spock's secret. What's beautiful too is that Spock secretly is probably like worried about her, in one way or another, until he ends up in a totally other universe. Like that same it's what's beautiful is it's that character. It's so rich, and for Michael to be there, seeing his whole journey, it's kind of like how we see Spock, in a way. So it's a moment where I feel like that whatever television bubble just disappears. This is a glorious episode. I love the Takal and Ket. I love this whole, reestablishing like a courtroom kind of trope or whatever. And yeah, it just I'm here for it. Unification 3, as far as I'm concerned, I have to watch all of them now in order when I when I watch them.
I also loved the sort of Spock's vision coming to fruition piece, but what I really loved was Michael seeing what happened to Spock, and like looking back and understanding what happened to his life and kind of what happened after she left him. The problem that I had though is that it made me want that for everyone else. Instead of the single line of, Tilly mentioning her mom and her cousin and then hugging Michael, I wanted to see Hugh find out what happened to his mom because she was referenced in an episode. I wanted to see them all, rather than spend several episodes with angry Detmer and then have it all resolved with Hugh going, maybe I should be ship's counselor after all. Like it would have been more powerful for me to see all of them have those moments, even if they were 3-minute scenes that just kind of crept in. Loved it for Spock and Michael, wanted it for everyone else.
What I want to know personally is, I feel like they have never, at least me personally, y'all can let me know. I feel like they have never in any of the Trek series really like defined the connection between Romulans and Vulcans to the point where it's like, are Romulans and Vulcans the same core species that branched off, and one side of the species went to a different planet and one stayed on one planet? Or are they just like genetic cousins? Because we also, I forget the name, but there's also the TNG episode where they showcase that the majority of the species in the Milky Way were seeded by that one species in our genetically like siblings. Um, that is where my issue lies. Like, I love the idea of Navarre. I love that Spock's work came into fruition. With like in this episode, I don't see besides the physical characteristics, I don't see the similarities between Vulcans and Romulans. I don't see where it is, and I feel like they didn't explain that enough. And I really wish there was like in any of the any of the series, I really wish it was even a like a 30-second clip of just explaining the similarities between Vulcans and Romulans and how they're the same people. However, I will say I did like how President Tirana spoke about keeping the fragile balance between the Romulan side and the Vulcan side, and how it's so fragile that it would be very easy for Romulus and for Vulcan to become their own separate people once again. So I do think that they did that very well, but also like me personally, like I get it. Michael was adopted. She grew up on Vulcan. We get it, girl. But it's just like I feel like every 5 seconds they like, yeah, Michael's human and she's crying, but she's also Vulcan. But it's like, girl, get somebody else. Get somebody else to do it. Get an actual Vulcan. Get an actual Romulan. Let her sit down. Let her take a break because it's like at the end of the day, that is a human being. And with all due respect, as logical as Vulcans are, I think that Vulcans are the most racist out of any
Yes,
Star
that
Trek space
part.
species.
That part.
I've always felt that Vulcans are very, especially when it comes to their relationship with humans, it's a condescending, not patriarchal, patronizing type of relationship
Mhm.
where it's like, yeah, we're gonna come and help you and this and that, third, but like for instance, we recognize that human beings have like they accomplish warp drive and they can go into space and this is amazing, but like, oh, you want to come to our science academy? I don't know about that. That's why I've always been like with Vulcans. I'm like, so wait, how did Vulcans accept Romulans? Because I feel like Vulcans will look down on Romulans so much.
Yeah,
Speaking
it's
of
really
science,
interesting what the show chooses to breeze past versus spend an inane amount of time on. Um, I've said it before. A show that does this really well is Babylon 5. Like it is all one 5-year story, and each season has a bigger chunk of that story. But almost every episode, there is a reminder of shit that if you're just watching it from last week, you probably already know. But because they were so concerned at the time about syndication and like, oh, it has to air in the same order, that's going to throw people off. They're going to be confused. Like every episode, there's always like a line or two that's like, J. Michael Straczynski weaves it in really well. It'll be like Delenn being like, as you know, 1,000 years ago, the enemy came out. And like it's shit that they've said like 6 times in the last 20 episodes, but it weaves in. They really could have used in that episode something like, it was discovered that Romulans and Vulcans are an offshoot, and through Spock's work and centuries of whatever, like they kind of touch on it, but not really enough. And a little that's a place where a little more telling, as we're about to be shown what the result of it is, would have been helpful for sure.
how did
I,
Michael get to invoke the Akuna Matata? Like she said,
The
he
T'Challa cat.
was.
No,
Joanne.
The Akuna Matata.
I almost
She-
legitimately did a
it's
spit take.
it's a wonderful phrase.
Tarina says to her that she holds a place of honor among Vulcans because her brother is Spock. So it's like, imagine if like the Messiah's like sister came down on a starship and was
But like
like
she said, I'm a
Yeah, 'cause every day-
graduate as a graduate of the Vulcan
oh,
Science
and
Academy.
she she
But I thought she
actually
went
is
to
an
the
interesting.
Starfleet. Or
No,
that's
no,
where
no.
okay.
Spock
She never went to Starfleet
Starfleet.
Academy.
Yeah,
But she
and
did.
then
She graduated the Vulcan Science Academy,
Right.
and then they wouldn't accept her into their expeditionary force.
Oh,
That's
so
why
like
she
her
went
high
to Starfleet.
school,
and
but
and I don't
or
know
whatever.
if Star
Okay.
Trek Discovery does a good job of this, but this creates like a problem with Sarek and Spock, and they don't talk to each other for like years. Is from the fact that Spock rejected the Science Academy, and then it's kind of like they didn't play up on it, but it's kind of like interesting how Sarek is so doting or interested in Michael because she's fulfilling his dreams that Spock didn't fulfill. So I love that they kind of wove that in, and you got to see a different side of Sarek through Michael, than what we know of him with Spock.
It's one of the things that made me appreciate not only the character of Michael Burnham more, but Discovery more, is that her story stands on its own, but also does a lot to make the rift between Sarek and Spock make more sense. Because I don't like the college you picked is not a reason not to talk to your son for 20 years. But the son not wanting to speak to the father in return because you seem to pay way more attention to the girl that came along at 10 years old and who took all the love and affection away. That angst actually informs that story while also giving her own. Sorry.
And it works so well because we get to see more of Amanda, because you can't have Sarek in Strange New Worlds, and we don't have enough Amanda information, so it works out beautifully. With the way it ties in. So I hope we see more Amanda. Like, I love Amanda.
So I might have missed this, but technically, the crew of Discovery has never seen a Romulan before this moment.
No,
Do they
you're
ever?
right.
Do they mention? I don't remember them mentioning the episode. They're like, a Rama who? Y'all are related
Right.
to Vulcans? Like they. I don't know if they mentioned it. It might have slipped past
They
me
just have
because,
never
like,
seen them. Will, I think they've never seen a Vulcan. I mean, a Romulan. They
Heard of
know
them.
they
about
haven't
They've
seen a
never seen
Romulan technically until
Mhm.
Navarre.
Battle of
Balance of
Balance of
Terror.
Balance
Terror.
of Terror. Yeah.
So they've never
Right, yeah,
actually
sorry.
seen a Romulan.
Right. So the
So
Discovery crew wouldn't have seen one.
Yes.
no, so
Right.
they've never seen a Romulan. So then they never kind of mention that, do they?
This was kind of like in the first episode when they mentioned the Gorn. Technically speaking, because this was before Strange New Worlds regornified certain things. Michael didn't mention, like, it could have been the same thing, like the who did what to two sectors of space. Yeah, like,
Benji said it was mentioned. It just slipped past me because I
Was it?
was like, they all seem very comfortable with the fact that that for hundreds of years.
Oh, yes,
At one point, they're like, "Oh, the Vulcans never said, hey, by the way, the Romulans are our cousin." They
Yeah,
never said anything.
Vance said it.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, it was mentioned. Anyway, I always thought it was funny that they were all a little comfortable with the fact that they're Romulans, and yeah.
But
And it was
Spock didn't know that the Romulans were when
he didn't.
in
Right,
Balance
right.
of Terror, when the screen came on and you saw the Romulan commander, Spock was surprised and he said, "If this is indeed true that they are an offshoot of my people, then we cannot show any. We have to attack." You remember that scene
Yeah.
in the
And
so.
Ken, keep me
was
honest
not a
if this
big
was
deal.
keep me honest if
Everything-
this was never retconned on screen. I think it was in a book maybe that it was mentioned that Romulans left because they rejected Surak. Was that ever?
Romulans broke away because of they rejected Surak. That's right.
I knew
Was
that
that-
too,
but
but
is
I
that
don't
canon?
remember where. That was maybe Enterprise established that.
Yeah, is that
possibly.
canon or is that just me reading a book and thinking that it's canon because I read it a long time
It
ago?
was first written in a book and then it was canonized in Enterprise.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But getting back to this episode, I like it. I just hate that it takes place on Discovery. Have this in a big building on Navarre. Like,
Yes.
why are you having this trial in literally someone's kitchen? Like, what the
I think
fuck
this
is
was
that?
before. This was before
Like,
they
I'm
had
sure it was
the
budget.
wall.
I'm sure it was budget, but
Yeah.
you're having this big like moment, and you're like, oh, they're having a trial, and they have these people, and they're literally standing in someone's walk-in closet. It was just so weird. I was like, put that shit on the planet. Like, what the fuck? I know it was budget, but it takes me out of the episode every time because it's shot so tight too. That like the
But just a
shots
heads
are
up,
so
Will.
tight.
Well,
Huh?
just a heads up, if we're ever all in Los Angeles and we have an argument, we're going to have a trial in your kitchen.
Okay, great. We'll do it. We'll do it there. We'll do it in
Yeah,
my
we'll do
walk-in
that.
closet.
His
Yeah, I have a
kitchen is
perfect place.
tiny. That's not going to work.
The
But would be
walk-in's
hilarious
even
to marry them.
smaller.
Hmm.
Yeah, we'll do it there. Yeah, it just always. I love this episode's great. I love that the how it ties into canon, how it brings all of this really full circle, like how it makes the destruction of Romulus actually mean something later. Because I always felt like it was thrown into Star Trek 2009 in a way where it was there to justify the story. It wasn't there for a reason, but then bringing this together and having them kind of reunify is super interesting. But I just hate the fact that it takes place literally in a closet. But that's my. I know it was budgetary reasons, I'm sure, but like For fuck's sake. Put it in like a nice courtroom down in LA or something. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, you know what they spent budget on? I'm using this as a segue for time. Costumes. More beautiful costumes. Let's talk about Giorgio because she got to go. I love Philippa Giorgio. I am so excited about Section 31 movie, which, like, one of the Trek accounts on Twitter suggested that they have wrapped. I don't know if they have or just one actor has wrapped.
I
But
think they wrap production.
yeah. So hopefully we're getting that later this year or early next year, or probably in 3 years, the way that Hollywood works now. / Toronto. But in season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, we gotta get rid of her so that we can, in what was it? In 5 years, have her in a movie. Let's get her. How long it's been? Forever. When season 3 was 2021, probably.
Yes.
Either way, Giorgio got to go. My quick thoughts on this: it should have been one episode, one longer episode, perhaps. Stretching it into 2 was too much. It took too much time away from the bigger story. I wish we got more of Giorgio leaving in Prime Universe before getting to Carl, with like the main story, like make her the A plot of this story, but she's part of the B plot of figuring out the burn a little more, and then whatever, like just a little one episode instead of 2 is my big problem. But that this outfit with the feather cape, if I win the lottery, there will be signs, and it will be me custom making that cape, or rather having somebody make it for me. Thoughts on Giorgio? Giorgio gotta go.
So Stan, just a point of clarification. The show ran from October 15th, 2020 to January 7th, 2021.
I love all Giorgio Mirror Universe, and I liked that I'm not like a science person. I wish I was, but I liked the explanation as to why she was sort of discombobulating with the jumping in time, and now she's 9 centuries. She's all over the place. I liked that. What I didn't like, and I think maybe Joanne, you mentioned this maybe last time or the time before, I don't like the idea that she needs redemption. I didn't like the idea that being able to return back to the plot device that would put her into Section 31, where the time divergence and the universe divergence hasn't yet occurred, was predicated on whether she would make different choices. I understand the point of telling herself that she's Terran the whole time that she's in the Prime Universe, and then going back and realizing that it has had an effect on her, and her immediate response is not this with the savagery that she would have displayed before. And yes, it was kind of a nice awakening, but the idea that Carl tells her that whether she can go through the door or not, and correct me if I'm wrong, was predicated on the different choices and the opportunity to make different choices, that bothered me, because I don't think she's Terran. She is a product of her environment. She behaves in a way that might be over the top, but I don't think she has anything to apologize for, though I do think that moment where she, basically tells Michael that, no, you didn't kill me by bringing me here. You gave me more life. And that, it was all worth it for just that one moment. But just the idea that she needs redemption, I don't believe she does. She behaves as she behaves because that is in her innate nature. And I don't think you don't condemn a scorpion for stinging. It's what they do.
I really want to meet you halfway, but I'm struggling with the Kelpian eating and some other things. But I totally understand your point. She's a product of her environment for sure. But not needing redemption for anything is a bit of a stretch just for me. But I totally get your point for sure.
All the
But
mirror universe
maybe
episodes
she's
don't
being
much
kind of
over
like
the
integrated and rehabilitated, and that's enough. Maybe it's okay because she's in this new world, like it's like she gets a fresh start in a way because we're aware of her crimes, but we didn't experience her crimes, and it's almost like also proving that being in an environment that can transform another like, for lack of a better phrase, a wretched person can be transformed by being placed into a good environment.
Yeah, I feel like Giorgio's character, besides the fact that I just absolutely love Michelle Yeoh, her character is one of my favorite characters. One, because I love a smartass. Like, I love a witty smartass in the show who can beat your ass. Like, I love it because if I was on Star Trek, I'm like, yeah, she could probably beat me up, and she's going to make fun of me at the same time. But I feel like her character is a great example of, because I don't want to chalk it up to, oh, she's Terran, like that's just who they are. No, it's not. That's who they choose to be. They're not, like, the difference between Terrans and Scorpions, that Scorpions are biologically made to have stingers as part of their defense mechanism. Whereas Terrans, they chose to be oppressors, they chose to be dictators, they chose to colonize planets, they chose to eat Kelpians. She didn't have to do that. That was a choice. And so I feel like Giorgio, I feel like the whole point of her of besides the fact, Michael trying to get over her own grief of her own Giorgio from her universe, bringing her into this universe was a showcasing to me of, this is the life you could have been leading. This is like what you could have had, because here's the thing, Giorgio in her universe, she had everything. She had everything. There was nothing she could ask for that she wouldn't get. However, because it was based on oppression, because it was based on hate, because it was based on just evil, there was no love, there was no friendship, there was no companionship. It was all about backstabbing. It was all dark, evil things. What did she really have? And I feel like her being the discovery is like, wow, these people aren't oppressors, they're not slavers, they're not evil, but they don't have everything, but they have everything they need. And I feel like that is the gist of, I feel like, as Giorgio being in this universe. Now, in terms of her feeling bad, I do think that she has a few things she could be redeemed for or apologize for. However, I don't. What am I trying to say? I love Giorgio, and I loved her in the season. I think the way that they exited her out of the show wasn't rushed, but also wasn't dragged out. I think it was a quick little let's go on to the next. Because at the same time, I'm trying to think before that episode, I was trying to think to myself, I'm like, what are they gonna do with JoJo? Like I was like at a certain point, we like, this woman is in this show for a reason. We have to get rid of her. We have to do something with her. So I think that her character was very important in the sense of, who can I be if I simply decide to make different choices?
Yep, I kind of agree and I agree with everyone and want to push back on everyone. Like the Giorgio of it all, I love the way that it resolved itself. I also feel like she didn't have as much to redeem herself for, but felt like the whole point of Star Trek is not that you must achieve your goal, but that you must embark on the journey of redemption. But also, like I said last week, every Klingon character we've ever met is a cannibal, so I don't have a problem necessarily. I don't think Giorgio needs to resolve the eating Kelpie, and maybe the bombing whole planet's not great, but also clearly a person who was from a place where you did what you needed to do to survive. And she was sort of the ultimate survivor. She may have taken it a few steps too far, but that's okay. But I think we're missing the whole point of the mirror universe, which frankly for me was Wilson Cruz in that red uniform, because
Yes.
it gave
With
me
the
thoughts.
eyeliner, with the eyeliner.
With the eyeliner, it gave me thoughts. Yes. I'll take it.
It's a mild one, but
Take
we
it.
got there.
We got to see hot dead, like
I take Take it as a
characters
win.
from the past in the mirror universe, which was cool too. Like that one
Stan's
guy that
husband.
got. Oh yeah, is he your
Yes.
husband? There you go. There you go.
Back. Mm.
Bartolomos or something like that. I forget.
Bridget.
Bridge. His name was
Bridge.
Bridge. 'Cause I was like,
Yeah. Yes, this
Got it.
bridge. That's right. Yes.
this Bridge right here. Mhm.
Just last thought on Giorgio, and then we've got to move on. I is going to be a weird tangent. I'm going to throw out yet another plug for The Good Place. If anybody hasn't seen it, they touch on redemption, and no spoilers, but there is one moment where a character says, "That's the problem." I'm paraphrasing. That's the problem with the afterlife point system. What the points tell you today is who they are today, but what they can't tell you is who they could become tomorrow. No one is beyond redemption. Beautiful. Highly recommend that show for anybody who hasn't seen it. It is lovely. It's 4 seasons, only 13 episodes each. It's beautiful. All right, y'all. We do need to talk about it. We need to talk about the burn and its cause.
Can I just start dragging them?
A 100 years, over 100 years of planets falling out of the Federation, most of the dilithium being gone, the Starfleet being what it is, the Andorians and the Orions coming together as the Emerald Chain, all of it caused by a crying child. Reactions.
And the children shall lead.
Season 3 Discovery is my favorite season. This is the most asinine plot line I think I've ever seen in all of Star Trek. I have never. Oh yes, yeah. Oh, lucky bird coop baby. I'm about to drag her for filth. Ain't gonna be no hair left on her head.
Drag her.
One of the main reasons why I love Trek is because I am not a STEM person. Math, science, it's not my cup. I just don't understand it, and I'm very appreciative and fascinated by people from the STEM community who can do those things, and vice versa, because I get that appreciation in regards to social sciences. You want to talk about racism? Go ahead. Talk about sexism? Go ahead. Want to talk about homophobia? Let's go ahead. Want to talk about physics? I'm not Neil deGrasse, okay? So one of the reasons why I watch Trek is so that I can get my fix of tangible and understandable science. This was Trek has dragged it out before. This was excuse my French, but this is the dumbest justification for a major event in Trek that I have ever seen over a child's cry. And
Well,
mind you, the child is annoying. Let's start there. The child is annoying. That
As
like
most are.
out of all the episodes in season 3, I can't watch that episode because that character frustrates me so much, and that reason is so just. I don't know what was going on in the writers' room. I don't know if they was tired. I don't know if somebody had COVID, but you know what? I'm done. I can't. Like I can't. It's that bad. I'm not a science bitch, and I could have wrote something better. It could have been subspace relays, or it could have been some type of energy particles, but a child's cry, and it's just like, no, I'm done.
They really started from the theme of the season is going to be connection. So how do we show a lack of connection? A sad child. Merp, merp, merp. Ken?
So
I will say that I can't.
Wait.
My
Let's
point
go-
is so quick.
wait. Let's go.
I
Let's go
agree
to-
with all of you.
Hang on. Let's go to Ken, then Sohel, then Will.
Okay, fine.
I mean, I agree with what Johnny was saying. Somehow, I would like to think that they had something else. And it's one of those things where the season got pulled apart in the writers' room because of COVID or because of something, this, that, or the next thing. We know that Picard season 2 got rewritten a number of times because of COVID. I have to think that maybe this happened here. and they ended up with this last minute thing, which they really should not have done. It makes no sense. There are lots of ways that you could eliminate dilithium with stuff that's in the Star Trek scientific universe. You could pull on different threads through the 50 years of storytelling to do something with the end of dilithium, or you know. But this was just not it. And if it was a way to try to get a connection with Saru and give Saru a character point and all this, okay, but you could have done it some other way. In this case, the idea of giving someone strong character moments, because there was good scenes with this kid and Burnham and this kid with Saru. Character moments, sure, but for it to be the Dux ex machina of the whole show, of the whole season, or however the hell you say that phrase, makes no, and I'm going to use the French word that Johnny didn't use, no fucking sense. Pardon my French.
When I watched Discovery the first time, I was really disappointed by the whole burn explanation, because I put so much time and energy into trying to figure out where the show was going. Like my brain was just running out. It was on fire or whatever. When I watch it like the third time, I realize it's like the least important thing about the season. I don't know. It's kind of like the burn is just resolving the burn was just kind of like, I don't think it was what stood out to me about the season. To me, it was just Star Trek Discovery kind of going into its home, like landing in the place where it belongs, and those kinds of themes. And so for Saru to find Su'Kal and then reconnect, him to the world, that was kind of a cool story. When I let go of all the attachments to how stupid the burn explanation was, because it's very stupid. But I thought the performances were great, and I thought the heart of it was great. The execution visually or whatever, however, techno babble, blah blah blah, just didn't come off. But to me, things like those things stand out. I don't know, there's so many good stories, so I forgive Discovery the burn, especially since season 3, which we'll talk about, just kind of elevates it to a whole new level, and I like where it went. It keeps going.
So this, we're all in agreement this was stupid, but like they got the idea from an Ursula K. Le Guin short novel that is about a picturesque future society that lives in serenity and happiness in everyone. And then at some point, the citizens are, because I read it after this, when I heard that this was what the season was, the explanation for the burn is based on this, that in order for the society to have for them to have this place, they must leave one child in perpetual filth and poverty. And then once the citizens learn, they make a choice whether they're going to stay in the city or leave. And I don't know if that's like, it's weird that they make reference to that, because it's just Su'Kal, and like he cries. And I think if it wasn't an adult, if it was like still a child, and then that meant something, where we get to see the child and how maybe they find that the burn was nothing. Like I don't think we needed an explanation for the burn. Like the centering around the seasons around a mystery or a central idea is nice, but like I don't know, in terms of like the theme they're trying to push forward with connection and all of that, I think that it would have, I don't think the burn needed to be explained. And I think attaching it to this character kind of undercuts everything that's happened, because people just focus on it at the end of the season. During my rewatch, I really liked this season a lot. But once we got to this and how stupid it was, I was like, this ruins the whole season, where we have this weird guy on a ship and they're like, oh, we have to get him off, and all that. It's just like, it's so dumb. And it would have been like, you could explain this in like a Star Trek-y way, where we don't need to know what caused the burn. Or it's just like, we use too much dilithium and it's connected through subspace and it's become unstable because of that. And
So you want me to fix it?
There's so many ways they could do that.
Yeah.
And they go, oh no, it was this guy on the ship and this crying, and it's just like, that's dumb. Like, why?
No, seriously, Will, because I forget the name. But there's the episode in TNG where there's the scientist who's trying to say that warp travel is
Hmm.
bad for space, and they don't listen to her, and then blah 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 blah. She proves that it's true. What, especially nowadays with the connection to environmentalism and greenhouse gases, what was missing? Because I think
Yeah.
it is so uber realistic to me that warp drive, even in like in the, because here's the thing, the same way, even if we came out with cures for like the common cold or anything, any basic illness nowadays, eventually our bodies would adapt. Time would go on. There would be new diseases and new things we would have to treat and things of that nature. In the future, who's to say that there won't be a new greenhouse gas? And so I just don't get it. I
Yeah.
don't get it. It didn't make any
I
sense to
think
me.
I think we could have we could have had him not connected to it, and like it wouldn't have undercut the rest of the season. I don't know. It just ruins it because they built this burn up so much, and then it's just I would have rather it had just been nothing instead of this because it just makes
Also,
it.
yeah, I
I
mean, you
don't
could
know.
have done nothing. The other thing that they established, although it was Klingon dilithium crystals, was that traveling through time in Star Trek 4 decrystallized the dilithium. It was Klingon dilithium crystals, and they were able to recrystallize it with the radiation. But what if the time travel of the Discovery itself, going off of Star Trek 4's decrystallization through that time travel, what if the Discovery's travel 9 centuries into the future was the cause of the burn? And so that would have been an interesting thing to do. And then they would have had to, so the Discovery had to save themselves, but then they actually learned that that time travel is what did it. And then the Discovery is responsible for it and also finding ways, to have that burden on themselves, but also fixing it. That would have been interesting. And it was established in that
More
moment of Star Trek
trauma
4.
for Discovery crew.
Yeah. Yeah.
More
Discovery
trauma.
must suffer.
They
Discovery
love
must suffer.
trauma.
They
Yeah.
do. It's true.
We are very short on
They
time.
carry our trauma.
I
for
want to
us.
throw it to Krista real quick, and then we're gonna move on to our last topic before we turn it over to Trev for the final numbers.
I was just going to say that the burn was kind of incidental. I think the point of the burn, they didn't have to elaborate on it because the point of the burn in the very beginning was to establish that already the Federation and all of the organizations were already treating kind of dangerous situations with neglect. So 900 years in the future, it's not unimaginable that this thing would happen and everybody would fracture, because it was a growing neglect. And in the first season, we hear, do you come in peace? Do you really come in peace? Or are you very usury with your peace? Are you very demanding with your peace? So I think the burn itself is incidental to the point it was trying to make, which was they were already going into fractured. They were already disregarding situations, climate situations, whatever you want to say, with frequency. So there was no other, and unfortunately, it just led to a bedwetter screaming. But the point was in the beginning, not the end.
All right, y'all. Oh, Trevor, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just had to make one final point, which was just that with respect to the cause of the burn, I already bitched about it earlier, but I also had to add that because there are many a commenter regarding current and new Trek that have made reference to, well, this writer said that this character was an allegory for this current community. Therefore, that character's whole race is, and this whole show is now bad. I've seen those videos. It's ridiculous. It's conspiratorial and it's obnoxious, and mostly centers on analyses of Star Trek Picard. That being said, the character of Su'Kal was specifically called out as a polyploid. Don't make the cause of not only trauma, but the death of millions in any way related to the addition or division of chromosomal information when we have people in our current society who are polyploids or who have polyploidic conditions, who are not dangerous, who are not going to cause problems for society. It was the most, in my opinion, egregious oopsie in Star Trek history, to actually take any sort of chromosomal disorder or condition and make it the big bad. Even though they made it about his sorrow, even though they made it an accident, people that have trisomy 21, trisomy 18, any other chromosomal disorder should not and are not in any way villains, and shouldn't be portrayed as such.
Trev, I think I think that's a fantastic point because when this episode came out, I did see a number of tweets from Trekkies who happen to have disabilities who were saying that the way that some people were speaking about the character was ableist, because that character in many ways would not be neurodivergent in the manner in which we would think of. So I think that you bring up a fantastic point because that this is a character who is not necessarily physically stunted or physically underdeveloped, but is mentally underdeveloped and is working with what they have been given. And I think that for myself, having been told that by other people, really changed my perspective on how I view that person, even though I still can't stand that character.
Yeah, I don't think it was. Yeah, and I don't mean to insinuate in any way that it was intentional. It's just a huge, like, you intentionally created a polyploidic character and made him the bad guy, even though you made it an accident. It just seemed really irresponsible to me.
Yeah. Well, I want to end on a positive note. One trajectory we had in season 3 is we had Saru learning that while he's a good captain, he's not quite ready. He's not quite a great captain. But we also see that Michael Burnham isn't quite sure if she still belongs in Starfleet. She sort of starts to re-earn her way back in. She gets bumped from first officer. I'm actually super glad we didn't talk about that nonsense with Tilly. God love her. I loved her with telling Rin to show respect. Quick aside, nonsense, made no sense. It was a Discovery being Discovery. But what they did get right is getting us this moment. I want to talk about Michael Burnham finally becoming the captain of Discovery. Let's fly, y'all. We got 2 minutes to talk about this. I hate to rush it because it was a beautiful moment. Let's talk about it. Who has thoughts on Captain Burnham?
I'm gonna go real quick because I've been talking a lot. I'm gonna try not to cry. I've seen this already with Benjamin Sisko, but seeing a black woman with box braids be the captain, uh, I am trying not to cry. It means a lot to me. I've never understood the complaints about the emotional realities of the Discovery show and Discovery cast. I felt that similar to what Joanne and Krista had both spoken about earlier in the show, I think that Michael Burnham and as well as Book have showcased Black people and Black love on a scale that has not been recognized on another production ever before. These are Black people in space in the future who somehow are finding connection with each other. And I feel like seeing Michael Burnham be a woman, be a Black woman, be emotional, be a badass, be a scientist, be intelligent, and finally sit her ass on that captain's chair meant everything to me. I've never understood the hate outside of racism just because Burnham to me is so similar to Kirk, like she's so similar to me. Where like Kirk is listen, we got a job to get done. I may break a few rules, but I'm gonna get the job done. That's how I feel about Michael. And so she deserved it. And I was so happy to see that. She really deserved it.
Here, here. That's all I'll say.
Same.
I agree. Very Kirk-like too. Good point, Johnny.
It's
Same.
great because all of the things that were held against her, all of the things that were detractors, all of the things that were problematic is the very reason why she's the only suitable person to captain in this time. And I liked the full circle of that she's fought and fought and fought and fought and she's made mistakes, and she's recognized mistakes. She's recognized triumphs. She even tries to say no. She shows vulnerability, and her immediate supervisor says, yeah, I recognize all of that, but we have to change the way we do things. We are here now because of the way we have done things. We need to move more in the direction of trying out some new things. And, you're going to be the person that heads us in that direction. And that is the single time where I really don't mind it being all about Burnham.
Right? Joanne, I saw that you came off mute.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like she's kind of in the same way. I don't think Giorgio needs much redemption, is because Michael gets labeled like difficult and self absorbed or whatever, and people want to hate on that, but y'all need difficult women, y'all need us. We get shit done, right? We make things happen. And for me, it was so profound when Vance kind of acknowledged that, like, no, you're not difficult. You're different, right? You see the world differently. You do things differently. You envision things differently, and you make things happen. And so to see her get the chair because someone appreciated, didn't weaponize, didn't vilify her difference, like I said, rocking, yeah, the 18-inch box braids, and her hair journey in season 3, incredible. Was everything to me. I cried today. I cried then. I just, yeah. I, it's a moment. It's a moment. She's a moment. That was a moment.
She
Also,
is the
Joanne,
moment.
I'm so sorry. I just have to say real quick, Joanne. I
Go for
think
it.
it's so funny that you point out her hair journey through this season, because if there's one thing, like there's small things. I think one of my grandfather slash my father, he always told me the main difference between white people and black people is that white people can, or white people and people of color, is that white people can go an entire day doing normal things without ever thinking about doing that thing while being white. And that gave me such a different perspective, because a lot of times white people and even non-black people in general showcase how little they know about black people on a human scale through the misunderstandings of things. So for instance, you mentioned her hair journey in like that first episode when we see Michael now with Starfleet. She there's a montage where she has very different like hairstyles and different hair lengths. And I remember listening to Star Trek Discovery Pod, which is a podcast on Spotify, and one of the podcasters was like, I don't understand how her hair could grow that fast, and I don't get how her hair could look like this and this that, and third. And it's like, baby, you don't have any black people in your everyday life. That's how you don't understand. That's Kanekalon. The same way your mom, your mom went from 12 inches to 16 inches overnight because she got some clipping extensions. Yeah, that is culture. And you're not getting that.
I
And I
made a
think
sugar
that,
spice connecticolon and cinnamon.
like, literally, like it's because as much as I love being a Trekkie, a lot of non-black Trekkies are so undereducated on black culture, and it's so weird to me because I'm just like, you never had like a black girlfriend from high school who's like, yeah, I gotta go get my hair braided. And it's like, if you live in a certain area, I understand that, but from like a human's perspective, as an adult, it's like the things I saw people say about her hair. I'm like, you don't understand black people outside of Star Trek on a human level. So I just had to say that. I just had to say that. Sorry.
No, I appreciate it. I want to just close us out by saying I love this season. I love that we got to end on this beautiful high note with her saying "Let's fly" and then warping out. I also just want to say, like, I recognize how powerful this is, but I also know that I could never truly understand how powerful this is for countless people out there who don't look like me. And I just love that we have that in Star Trek. I think it's been a long time coming. It took way too long. More, please. More of the beautiful tapestry of our world, all of the colors, all of the different shapes and sizes. More. Thank you all for all of your thoughts on this season. Thank you to everybody in the audience. Those of you on YouTube at Salon Trek, for those who haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. You can always join us in the chat for these every Thursday. We will, of course, be back next week for the 4th season of Star Trek Discovery. Gearing up for season 5 coming up, sadly, the last season in just 2 weeks. So, last thing, please do follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky at USS Salon. Subscribe here. I'm going to turn it over to Trevor to close us out with the tallies for the week.
1 problematic gay alert. It was mine, and I'm damn proud of it. 1 Bev alert. 1 problematic ally alert. Go ahead, ladies. Bonus points, 500 to Krista for the anticipated input was lacking. Girl, I saw that comment and it was fantastic. 1,000 points to Joel for Dadmirals, not Admirals, which should be a t-shirt if it isn't already. 3 bonus points to Ken for being our TOS resource officer, as always. Ken, I only give you 3 points because that's how many seasons TOS ran.
It's the first bonus points I ever got.
That is not true. I will research that and get back to you in our little after chat. 3,200 bonus points to Joanne for first full circle flag moments because she brought it around for us. And Johnny, your first appearance, 1,701 bonus points. Don't spend them all in one place, girl.
Welcome, Johnny. Thank you, Trevor. And actually, real quick before we close out entirely, so Hel, do you want to let the audience know when you're going live tomorrow with your show?
Yes, 5 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to talk about Star Trek Lower Decks season 4.
2 p.m. in the afternoon for the Golden State. All right.
That's okay, no worries. I stay up late for y'all.
Yes. Yes, I will dip out of work early and try to be on.
All right, yeah, we're talking about the second episode, the one with Moopsy, season 4.
Oopsie. Yeah. What's the channel name again?
It's Starfleet So Hail. Just I didn't have Starfleet So Hail. I don't have it up today, but just my name, So Hail Starfleet. That's it. You got it.
All righty. And with that, we're gonna spore jump out of here. Thank you all very much. Live long and prosper. Black alert.